Okay, it's now time for us to take all of these incredible OpenGL skills that we have developed and put them to good use in the creation of a real-world application.
Yep.
What we're going to do is we're going to create our very own particle engine. And there's a lot of things that we need to cover between now and the final application.
That's right. There's a lot of things we need to get created before we can even see anything on our screen.
That's right. So let's go ahead and advance to the next slide and talk about what's going to happen throughout this entire process. First off, we're going to begin with an overview.
This overview.
That's right, just to help put everything into perspective for you. Basically give you guys a roadmap to the final objective. Now, we're going to talk about a little bit of math in the introduction here.
Right.
Because there's some math in here. Unfortunately, OpenGL doesn't understand apply gravity to these polygons,
right.
and it suddenly just does its thing. It doesn't work like that.
No, but it does make sense at the same time, simply because OpenGL is a graphics API.
That's right.
It's not a physics engine.
But that means we have to define forces that are going to be affecting our polygons, and of course, this is simply done through math. All we're doing is just calculating new positions for our polygons to be drawn in.
Just a few vector additions.
That's right. But the funny thing is, to those that are completely new to working with this kind of stuff, it can be quite intimidating.
Yes, it can.
Ooh, look at all the math. I'm so scared.
Right.
So what we want to do is kind of pull the mystery out of it and make it as simple as possible for you guys to understand. Because once you have a basic understanding of how to create a few different forces, you can really get in there and start adding all sorts of fancy things.
Definitely.
To it. So that's kind of the goal here. Next, we need to create some custom controls.
Right. Something to allow us to control the way our emitters behave.
Exactly. Interactively.
Yeah.
Real time. How cool would that be?
Very
we
cool.
need buttons, we need sliders, and we need list boxes.
Yep.
And we're going to show you guys how to go about creating all of these line by line.
Because in OpenGL we don't have create button or
No.
GL create button or something
and
like that.
And suddenly the event handling's all set up. And ooh, wouldn't that be so nice?
That would be nice.
But no, it's not like that. And by the time we get done with creating all of our custom controls, you guys are going to have such a good feel for how it's done that you can go off and create pretty much any control you can think of.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really nice. From there, viewport navigation. That's right. Right now, our SDL demo has a cube. And to get around this cube, we use the arrow keys. And that allows us to just rotate the cube, basically. Well, we're going to throw that out and bring mouse navigation in.
Yeah.
So that you can left-click in your viewport and drag and have your camera basically tumble around the scene. At least that's what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And then use your right mouse button and slide back and forth and allow the user to zoom in and zoom out. That's going to be very nice. From there, what we're going to do is have another introduction video, if you will, to the emitter and particle classes. We're going to talk about how the emitter and particle classes work and what attributes are available that we're going to be creating.
Yeah.
From there, we're going to actually create the emitter and particle class. That's going to end up being a long video, but we'll take our time and make sure we explain everything that's going on so that you guys understand how the heart of the particle engine works.
Right.
After that, we're then going to add particles into the SDL demo. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We will be stripping that cube out and anything else that may be in there that's not necessary for our particle application, and then we're going to start adding all of the necessary code so that we can create an emitter that's emitting particles. So we'll be bringing the emitter class and the particle class into our project, and we'll go from there. I mean, it really only makes sense.
It does.
If we were to start a brand new project, we're going to do a lot of the code that
we've already done before.
We've already done.
Many times.
Exactly, and that would really be a waste of time. So if you've been following along with us all the way up to here, it's going to work out beautifully for you. And if you haven't, then you may simply want to back up and figure out how to make the basic foundation for your application.
Right.
After that, what we're going to do is, so we'll see particles moving in our screen, or in our viewport, if you will.
We just won't have controls to be able to
Not without
change
going into the code, changing it, recompiling it, and launching again. So we're then going to add the controls that we have set up earlier into our application. So we're going to have a bunch of sliders, buttons, etc., so that we can manipulate our emitters to get various types of effects, which will be really cool. And then, finally, kind of a bonus video for you guys, because we were not going to add this originally, because it is kind of right on the edge of an abyss of, well, many, many hours worth of lecture.
Right.
And so we're just going to touch on it. But what we're going to do is we're going to show you guys how to add some OpenGL extensions. And then once we have those in place,
how to utilize OpenGL
how to utilize it so that we can basically apply different texture modes. So we can do things like darken up our smoke when it's over fire, things like that. Make our effects look a little nicer.
Definitely.
So let's go ahead and Alt-Tab over real quick and bring up the application that we're going to create. This is it.
This is the goal.
As a matter of fact, to be honest with you guys, we've recorded this introduction video last. This is what we code line by line through the next few videos, which is awesome.
So after the next few videos, this is what you'll be getting.
Exactly. So you'll notice we have a bunch of custom controls along the left-hand side, and Joel can go through there and he can just start playing with these, and you'll notice how in real time our particle system updates to reflect the changes that Joel has applied.
Right, so I can change the offset, I can change the vortexes you just saw, how many particles are going to be emitted, you know, how the emission radius, all of this can be changed in real time.
We can even add additional emitter. Oh, yeah, we change our texture.
We can change what kind of texture we want to use.
Which means you guys can come up with all sorts of interesting textures to give yourself some pretty crazy effects.
Just simple targets applied to multiple particles.
That's right.
And you can add new emitters in here. I mean, I can add a smoke on top of that weird thing that I have back there. So,
yeah, strange.
That's very weird looking.
You change emitter 1 back to flame. Make us a nice...
Oh, that looks better.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Already nice. And controlling the alpha, let's jump back down to the smoke. So emitter 2, controlling the alpha, you can see how we can control how dark it is, how light, etc. Add one more emitter. Let's put some little sparks in there or something.
All right, so we can add a stars in here.
Really small size.
Spread them out a lot so they shoot out.
Woo.
And maybe turn down the size.
Actually, give them a really strong gravity real quick, just so we can show that they are bouncing off the floor as well. So here we go. Boing, boing, boing. They are.
They are indeed.
Interesting trick to pull that one off.
Yep.
Okay, so now we have little sparks. Okay, gravity, go bye-bye.
Okay.
No, wait, leave it on and turn the vortex on. Yeah, let's get everybody dizzy. Woo!
Wow, now that's just trippy.
So, really, we have a lot of different control right here, which is really cool.
Yep.
And by the time you guys get to the end of these videos, you will be able to create an amazing particle application if you'd like, or implement this technology into your own games, or
whatever.
If you're making some type of 3D application. It doesn't matter. The whole idea of the next few videos is to show you how to create a real-time particle engine that allows the user interactive updating and control.
Definitely.
Now, the final thing I want to talk about is obviously we're going to be bringing up the application from time to time as we're doing now. And you guys are seeing this being played back at 10 frames per second, plus it's been compressed. So this is probably going to look somewhat rough in your final video.
It's going to look not so good.
No, not so good at all. So, not a problem. When you guys compile your own application and get it running, you're going to see that it looks 1,000,000 times better. Just remember...
And if it doesn't, you're doing something wrong.
That's right. Just remember the bottom line is this. We've got to record at 10 frames per second, otherwise we'll have so much content file size-wise, it'd just be crazy. So this is the application we're going to create. Let's go ahead now, Joel, and jump over to Photoshop real quick. So, here we are. Time to talk about math.
Math. And luckily for us, there's not a whole lot of things we need to discuss.
No, it's really straightforward.
Basically, we have 3 vectors that we need to worry about. The position, the velocity, and the acceleration. And all of these are very tightly tied together, if you will. Basically, I have a position which specifies, well, let me say I have a particle right here. It has a position X, Y, and Z that specifies where this location is. I have a velocity which specifies how fast a particular particle is moving. And acceleration influences the velocity directly by adding on more and more velocity over time.
That's right.
So let me just give a few quick, simple examples here. Let's say I have a velocity, and I'll just call this V.
Okay.
Let's say V goes 1, 1, all right? So notice here, our velocity is getting added onto our position every single time. So let's say we have a little particle that's sitting at the origin, and every time we add velocity 1, 1, so it's a constant velocity. Well, what's going to happen? Well, he's going to add 1, 1. So on the first frame, he may get to here.
Right.
Second frame, he might get to here, 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 and then he just goes on and on and on. And basically, a line connects this, and this is the path you're going to see over time.
Just a constant velocity.
Yep. So, what if I change that and said, let me make this a little bit higher value, give him a higher velocity, kind of changing the scale in real time here. So, let's say we have a velocity of 10, 10. Now let's add some acceleration onto this. Let me say my A is going to equal 0 and -1. So I'm not changing my acceleration in the x-axis, but only in the negative
You're no longer going to get
y-axis.
a constant 45 degrees off the x-axis.
No, you're not, because remember, acceleration is changing the velocity, which velocity is changing the position. So every time the velocity is now changing.
So 10 is going to end up, of the velocity for y is going to become a 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Yep, and that is getting added individually onto position every single time. So basically what you're going to get is, let me just sketch this out real quick. So we're going to start out shooting off like this, and it's going to shoot off, and it's slowly slowing down here until it stops, and then it goes all the way down like so.
That's right.
So at this one point right here, we actually do get velocity is equal to 10 and 0.
Right.
So there's no longer any velocity in our y-axis, and slowly we're increasing it back until we're starting to go down, actually. And it's at this point that we do some calculations to calculate how to invert it. If we hit our y-axis at 0 point, how do we bounce it off so that it goes in the other direction? And we do that simply by testing whether the position in y is less than 0. If it is, simply invert that component so we can start bouncing off, and this component becomes up. And then what you end up getting is a bouncing effect.
Exactly. Guys, that's gravity.
That is gravity. That's all there really is to it. All we need to do is, because acceleration is a constant value. I mean, gravity is not changing every day in our life.
That's right.
Gravity is the same.
That would be awful.
That would be really, really weird. So acceleration, we set it to something like -1 or -9.8. And then what that allows us to do is have this nice arching effect, which is really cool. If we want to do something like wind, let me just erase this. It's exactly the same concept, but I'm just going to...
Now, we're going to completely implement wind. We're just not going to give you guys the controls, though. You're going to see it'll be super easy to add them.
Very easy to add. I mean, all we need... Well, basically, as you just saw in the SDL demo we showed you, all the controls we already have fill up the entire screen.
Exactly.
So if you want to add other ones, it's very simple to do. Swap out maybe the offset with the wind or something like that.
Or just have a bigger window.
Or just have a bigger window.
Right.
We're kind of limited on size because it's a recording space.
Precisely.
So let's say our velocity is 1010, and our acceleration, now this right here, what we had just 1 second ago, let me put that on the top left here. Oh, no, I'm sorry, acceleration. We're specifying gravity here. So when our acceleration was something like 0, -9.8, this is our gravity, which is directly modifying acceleration. So this is gravity. If we wanted to add something like wind, exactly the same idea. We could say something like -1 in x for our wind. And if we had a velocity like this, what we would get is the position starts out here, it shoots off in this direction, and we're changing the velocity to -1. So this is going to go to 9, 8, 7, 6, and start going the opposite direction.
While y remains the same.
Yep. So we basically get gravity going in the other direction.
Well, the particle going in the other direction.
Well,
yeah.
Basically, it's
because
gravity, but going in
I see how you're describing that.
Right. So
yeah,
before we had it going down, and now we just have it going across the x-axis.
That's right.
So, I mean...
But that's wind. So our particle's moving up, and whew, the wind's blowing it up.
Right, and we can add these two together, in fact. So this one is our wind. So let me put that here. A equals -1, 0. And let's say this is our wind.
Now, if you add the two together, and you get a
two
-1,
forces.
Comma,
and do you see how this is working here?
Absolutely.
Because we have our acceleration, which is essentially our force. I mean, there is a formula that relates the two, which is F, and probably everybody who's ever taken a physics class knows this. F equals ma. This is a really popular formula that everyone must memorize. So the force is equal to mass times acceleration. In our case, our particles don't really have any mass.
Right.
So we're just assuming that the mass is 1. So basically, our force is equal to our acceleration. So any forces you want to create, wind, gravity, or anything else, you simply add these together.
That's right.
So in this case, if we added these two vectors together, we'd have -1, -9.8.
Exactly.
So if we just cross this out real quick and change this to -1, -9.8, and let me just erase this graph. Let me draw the new graph that you would get. You would get basically something like this. It's going off in this direction, slowing down as it goes in y, shoots down, and gets something like that. So just by changing the acceleration, adding new forces in, you can start getting some really interesting effects very, very quickly.
For sure.
Basically, that's all there is.
And that's it. The code that's right there, that code is copied from the final code.
This right here, I mean, there is a little bit more that we have in there.
Not much.
But not much.
That's the heart of it right there.
Yep.
So with that, I think we are now armed and dangerous and ready to begin the journey into creating our particle application.
Yep.
So we're going to start off with custom controls. Let's go ahead and get started.